she's one of the biggest forward thinkers around AR at this moment. She's also going to talk a lot about Wave, but it's not going to be about Wave. It's not going to be about AR. It's basically about how our world, our society is changing. So please, a warm Amsterdam welcome for Tish Shute.
Really happy to be here, but this is actually a debut. It's a debut for this story in public. I've been really talking it non-stop since January of this year, but mostly in the bar of conferences, in coffee shops in New York City. I began seriously thinking about this at ETech, the Where 2.0 conference, Where Camp, and then Foo Camp. And I have literally talked probably, I don't know, a very large amount of people, particularly in the geo community, because I'm going to give you a very simple frame to hang on to start with, because I'm a person who likes elaboration. I like ideas, and I may take off in places that aren't so familiar, but very simply, we're involved in a project, and I have some of the key people sitting here who've been working on this with me. I'll introduce them during the talk. To design a protocol to store geolocated data on Wave servers. So just hang on to that if I start getting out there. Now, the big goal of that is to, well, it certainly began with the idea that we all held in common, was to have an open, distributed framework for augmented reality that would allow us to have an architecture of participation for augmented reality experiences as powerful for the kind of experiences we experience on the web. So that's our dream that we shared. We've actually, and I think we'll get to my title, yes. You see, I started playing with this idea of mobile social interaction utility. It comes actually from David Reed, you'll see that later, because we're finding that this is one of the beauties of this framework, is that it's going to be very easy to go back and forth between map applications, and perhaps one of the first things we will do will not be an augmented reality application. So, this is an emerging idea. It's something you can be part of. We're basically actually at the point of beginning to implement. It's probably just moving out of 9 months of pre-production and thought, and it's very exciting. I think we're going to actually be able to show some things next time I talk, and but a lot of this, so if it seems a little kind of emerging, it is emerging. These are conversations that went on in the Google sandbox very early on, and it's a great pleasure to introduce them here. And it's thanks actually to Yuri and Martin Lenz Fitzgerald of Lair, who basically persuaded me I could make this into a story that really is ready for the public. And also to Mark, who we did talk for hours, because I'm deep inside this. It's a little harder for me to bring it into this mode at this moment. So just quick, I don't want to spend too long on my background, but I have a really long history in real-time software development and a love and involvement in augmented reality. This is back in the day. I worked many, many, many years of my life in film special effects. I sat in dark rooms for 3 weeks creating augmented experiences. And I tell you, we dreamed of this day. We dreamed of a network that we could share augmented reality experiences on. And I don't know, it excites me so much. So I'm going to go, this is what I did, and it's actually now, being tied in with computer vision, so that these are sort of, set-piece augmented experiences. It's not what I do now. So in January, the story really began for me when a friend of mine who's a mobile developer in New York City, Nathan Freitas, who's done, some wonderful work in mobile. He works for Andrew Hopping. He's done a lot of stuff for the state government and some Gov 2.0 work. It's really exciting with mobile. But he handed me his phone. He said, hey, you want to see my augmented reality graffiti app? And he started drawing some little graffitis that I could see. And I have to say that, and then he showed me Wikitude. And the moment I stood in Broadway and I held that phone up, it's absolutely on a level with the day I first went like that and got a book from Amazon. The game changed. Now, I'm not saying this is like where we're going to end up, but for me personally, that experience began this journey. And I've been around augmented reality a long time. I've seen the high end. That still impressed me. And actually, a quick little thing, Martin from Lair always says that he was very inspired by that particular blog to think of Lair, but we'd have to ask him the full story. So, you know, it is about augmented reality for me a lot. This is what inspired me. But this is, I think, the more I'm learning about what we're doing, you know, with the framework, is we're really thinking of a mobile social interaction utility in some way. Whether we're going about it the way that this will ultimately turn out, I don't know. It's not a matter of being right. It's a matter of beginning it and doing it. So this is really important to me when Mark said that, is that this idea that the internet is coming alive is really a core to this. And you'll see a little bit more why perhaps in the next slide. At the interface level, why did we get excited by 6 cents? You know, $300, whoops, worth of projector around your neck and $300 worth of hardware. We got excited because we knew the internet was coming alive. And what's super cool is this has just been open sourced. This is going to be, for those of you who don't like this, I often hear this, well, I don't want to hold my phone up. Well, play with this. An open distributed framework gives us a chance to play with all kinds of clients, all kinds of interfaces. So, you know, wonderful that it's very, very generous move that he's open sourced this. Wonderful. So, yes, it is this, and it's interesting because he's not here right now, but Bobby Rao, actually, I'm not good at giving simple use cases. I like the really out there ones. But he gave this really cute, simple use case of the restaurant. What you want to know about the restaurant is not the Zagat guide. You want to know, you know, what experience your friend had yesterday. You know, can you kind of do special orders with which waiter? That's what location's about. Location is there's a company in the US called Placial, and it's a great word. It's their name, so I won't use it. But it's this idea of place and what goes on there and what we do there. It's not a set of coordinates. It's very, very, you know, it's a culture, the culture of place. So that's kind of this idea. Also, I think one of the things that's I'm really big on this because it's another thing I've waited for a very long time. But you know, the instrumented world and augmented reality, they really are a pair. These are kind of, their DNA is linked. And as these emerge together, we're going to see use cases for this you can't really quite imagine now. Depending on how my time goes, I have a few things that I'm interested in use cases, and depending on what your questions are, I'll present some of them. But what we don't have is this thing that all living beings need, and the internet to be alive needs it. It needs this basic way that we can have a communication architecture. You know, even bacteria have it. They have a quorum sensing proton. Come on. Augmented reality needs this. It's really, really important. I can't, you know, of course I think I'm doing it the right way, but that's not the only point. Actually, I'm not sure yet. You will find out whether it's too early to say whether it's right or wrong. Okay, this idea has been around, right? This was a presentation that David Reed gave in, I think, April. And it was interesting because, you know, in the way the internet works, I pinged him because I hadn't thought that it was the David Reed, who's one of the, you know, fathers of the internet, worked on TCP. And I said, I want to use that slide in my blog. And I hadn't thought about it. It was just I was really rushed to get the blog out. And I thought, I need to ask permission, I'm going to ask. And he pinged back and he said, do you know that I am da-da-da, my interests are really, you know, close to yours? And it was a wonderful email. I just went, yes. But what was wonderful about the connection was I actually didn't know it was him. I just wanted to use that slide. He has some interesting ideas about, I mean, if you also know that he was one of the founders of Croquet, he sees, you know, Cloud 1 is the internet. Cloud 2, some people describe it. I've seen it described as Amazon Web Services, Google, da-da-da. He tends to see it as the kind of massively multiplayer online games and the kind of, you know, the shared real-time dynamic 3D experience of Second Life. But, you know, what we're into now, what he's into thinking about is this third cloud, mobile social interaction utility. And I like that. I mean, I'm sure he would explain it differently to you than I do, but it's a very interesting idea. So what are the qualities of a third cloud, if we're going to just start play with that idea? Because that's something we have to think about is, well, what are the qualities of this distributed augmented reality framework? How do we imagine it? And obviously, context-based mobile social communications is its core. It's interesting because Mark also put out this image. I started thinking about traffic lights, and one of the early ways this has been thought out at MIT is this idea of actually the socialized signs, where you walk by a sign and automatically it connects you through to your, friends and it could, if you walk up there, it's going to know if you walk up to this traffic light and you're slow, that you'll let your wife know that you're late for dinner. Now, this is to me, this is a kind of, it's just one model of ubiquitous computing. It has a long history. This idea that kind of the Internet of Things just quietly goes on and does stuff for you to make your life easier, and it's all in the background. But it is, this synchronized sort of idea of having like a sign which can really serve you in this social way. And it's again, you can tell how fresh off the press this is, because I mean, one of the things, I've not been to Amsterdam, surprisingly, before, and of course I noticed no one had curtains and you could see their lives. And one of the things people object to about this model in New York a lot, of course, is it's a model of, windows with no curtains, right? Because this is, very much, there's virtually no privacy in this model that you can really imagine. I'm sure they're working on it at MIT, but I'm not sure how they've imagined it. So it's it might be something to experiment in Amsterdam, the city with no curtains. But what's interesting about augmented reality, and obviously that's something I'm very close to, it's close to my heart, is actually it allows you this opportunity to create channels and filters and layers. Great name, Lair. Lair took the name, fantastic name. It's core to this. But it gives you this opportunity, to basically, Thomas Roble did, this is one, we actually met because I had seen in 2006 a concept drawing he did for something he called the ARN, which was an idea for the distributed open augmented reality. So it's not on my blog, this photograph, but it's such a wonderful, prescient photograph. And I'd seen Thomas's comments and blogs for a long while, but when I saw Google Wave Federation Protocol, I pinged him instantly because I thought, oh my God, his time has come. I mean, because it's a wonderful drawing. I should have had it in my slides, and because it's on my blog, I forgot to put it in. But this idea that we can, have these, channels and layers that, it's like ways that we can, again, Bobby Rao kind of pointed at it, that we can, have this sort of placial relationship to wherever we are, to our context, so that the information is very personal to us, but also some of these things will be public layers, they may be big public games and other things. But to me, the magic of augmented reality is partly, unlike the other model of the social signs, that we can really play with this. Of course, there's smart people like Jamé Cascio has already pointed out that this might have some dystopian futures to it. And if you've read this article, he wrote about the fact that, with a politically divided society, people could block out all the messages they didn't like. And the end of the story is he basically said, this is a social problem, not a technology problem. We do this anyway, regardless of our technology, so which I agree with. But it was interesting, I think he's at the Institute of the Future still, they got it right away. This is some of the issues with that. This is another, Chris Arkenberg's also from the Institute of the Future, and this was something he's been in our Google Wave groups talking and discussing some of these ideas. And I think social publishing, which he's been thinking about, is definitely something that's going to, if you have this open framework, you have ability to share data, mash up data, and then with the added layer of augmented reality where you can create the channels and layers and filters to this data. This is massively powerful stuff. But that image, which doesn't show up so well, is actually just glam dots are just like something, a fashion statement someone did that I found somewhere on the web. They're not an augmented reality app. It's just I thought they kind of, I don't know, Mark encouraged me to look for pictures. So this idea of a remix culture is, of course, what's enabled on this idea of the open framework. And this is something people have been theorizing about on the web, because the web has the open architecture. It's the mother of all open architectures, right? So there's lots of thinking about this, and we're still trying to wrap our heads around this. We still have issues with business models and all of that. Sorry. This is the issue with where we are. I mean, I heard someone else use this slide, so I don't feel so bad. But right now, for me, we've got the rather aging gentleman who's really big, stuffed in a little roadster. And we've got a lot of these things going on with augmented reality. That's not going to get us very far. We have to think. We have no choice. And basically our augmented reality experience, which, as I say, were game-changing for me. Honestly, I stood on that street in Broadway. I said, Nathan, I wrote the blog. Oh my God, finally. But this isn't going to get us very far. All of the experiences are built around resources from elsewhere in the ubiquitous experience. I call it pulling the web to the world. I mean, it's just a first step. But we can't stop there. It's ridiculous. I mean, for one thing, the World Wide Web, as we know it, it's really already evolving into something else. I mean, you all know the story of the end-to-end internet and the end of the IP addresses and all of this. I'm not going to have to retell that story, but we've got to think on. But there are some interesting stuff going to happen with this browser-based AR. I don't think Siri's releasing this as an AR app, but you see, once you get, and Tim O'Reilly has been talking about this, once you get this situation where you have cooperating cloud data services and mobile, you get these apps that learn by context accumulation. This is pretty interesting stuff. There's a couple of, I think this is due for release in 2.10. Magiti is another app like this. This is pretty interesting stuff. It's still resources from elsewhere, but it's interesting. I mean, I see a framework as really being able to have the power of this kind of, the database-driven real-time web mixed with the kind of asynchronized, people-driven remix culture for augmented reality. Okay, so the brain behind Siri is Kalo, or I don't know, actually I've never heard it said, so I don't know how you pronounce it, but it's a $150 million project, so they've got a nice back end to that. So next slide. Can't we work on the front end a bit and the architecture participation? I mean, it's a lot in one area. I mean, I would like us to sort of start thinking about, getting the roadsters moved ahead. We are seeing some mobile social interaction apps. We have Lair, Build AR, Wikitude.me, Juni.io's, got something out which is kind of fun. You actually can play with the 3D objects on that and share them with your friends. And it is kind of cute when I blogged this, when you're sitting in a meeting, right, and it's all serious, and then someone there's playing with these pet dinosaurs they're augmenting the meeting with, and you don't know about it, and then later you see the pictures. It's kind of interesting. And, this is very much like the situation we've seen on the web for a long time. There's a reason that it's hard to get people thinking outside this box, right? So, we've got to extend our thinking a little bit, because that's a very well-loved business model, isn't it? I mean, so there are others, but this is a pretty, tried and true. So, one of the goals of this having a mobile social interaction utility, open augmented reality framework, is so that we can really lower the barriers for content creation and sharing. that's when you start getting interesting stuff. And everyone knows it. Again, I think who presented it, maybe Arno did. I mean, the power of user-generated, participatory culture, it's proven, we know it. But we need that for augmented reality, and it isn't going to happen in the Roadsters, not at the level it could. I mean, you all know that this is based on, interoperability. This is an old story, but we need it. We've got to do it, got to do the work. What is interesting, and I think sometimes because I come out of real-time, software culture, I've been watching people watch the internet in different ways. I watch it from kind of its evolution into real-time communication. It's exciting. It's been doing really great. And, we know from Twitter and Jabber how powerful this is. And it's very interesting because it moves the whole mode into this mode that's very much the ubiquitous computing augmented reality mode, attention streams, data streams everywhere, cross-pollination between streams. It's beginning to emerge on the web itself, not as augmented reality because we don't have the sharing mechanisms as much. And luckily, actually, Mark really encouraged me not to get too technical about Wave. I quite like to do that because it gets me kind of, oh God, I mean, it's just a very interesting what they've done, and you can delve into it. We have Thomas here who's been pretty deep into it. There's another character in the whole sort of development process that I'll bring in later, but this is the core. You've not seen this before. You haven't seen this before. This is big. Now, the way it manifests actually on the current web interface, people kind of go, oh, that's the worst thing. We can't do anything with that. And I think the way it's manifesting on the web interface is true. We don't really know what to do with this. Although it's interesting because I was in the sandbox very early, and even though it's very alpha, very beginning, I have pretty much moved all my collaboration into Wave. I don't know whether that's because I'm so involved with this, but you haven't seen that before. There's many, many, very nice things they've done. But again, at the core, and why this is important for augmented reality, is the fact that we can combine, it has the advantages of real-time communication, but we also have possibility to have persistent data as well as the kind of, synchronous real-time communication. It's really important that ability to combine persistent data with, this kind of real-time, co-editing experience. It's really, that's big. Again, we can come see if even the questions, there's not examples of this. This is new for an internet protocol. It's a federation protocol. Very important, it is a federation protocol, right? Because it's not going to be an architecture of participation unless we can, follow the basic thing that we learned from the web, that the power is the loosely conjoined small parts. And I mean, you've probably all seen the gorgeous maps of the internet, right, that show this. I probably should have put it in there. And the other thing is, it's not that, people haven't thought about this, but this is being presented to us off the shelf. It is presented open all the way up. I'll get to some of the complications at the level of the client-server communication, which is, while it's open, is so complex, it's very, very hard to do anything with it, and it also, at the moment, is a moving target, so we don't actually have a supported standard like XMPP or JSON for the client-server. But it's pretty off the shelf. I mean, anyone want to start building things from scratch? It's a lot of work. Okay, sorry. It's plumbing, I'm sorry, it's not as sexy as talking about a really cool app or a really cool game. It's a little bit plumbing. Now, hopefully we'll move fast. So next time I show up, we'll be showing you apps. I know Thomas just talked to Ted from Skyhook, and we're going to have some mashups to show you that, really knock your socks off. But right now it's plumbing. But plumbing is very important, particularly for recreation. So Wave provides a new and interesting set of open pipes. That's the simplest way I can put it, right? For social augmented experiences, and as we're beginning to see perhaps a mobile social interaction utility. I mean, I haven't got deep enough into to think about all the ramifications of that. And of course, this plumbing could come with a very big house. That has very good things, and it can have some negatives. But you know, one of the things for augmented reality you need is really, it would be fantastic to have a server structure all over the world so that we could be, you know, pulling off local servers and not, you know, getting into working with servers very far off. That's the good side of the big house. Oh, did I? Sorry. Okay. So we began with asking this question, and very quickly people came out of the woodwork and said, oh my God, you know, Wave needs AR. We need to have these layers in context to make sense of this like real-time interaction. I think they're onto something. This is an evolving discussion, right? I mean, it would be quite funny if that's one of the things that turned out, because it wasn't really the way we began with this. But this is part of an ongoing discussion in Wave. Okay, the big bad question. So, does it, you know, is this kind of getting us all into Goozilla, as we like to call it? And the other issue is that the client-server protocol is a moving target. That, without getting technical, that is a problem. It doesn't make it, you want to build, I mean, people who've built new clients for Wave have gone through a lot of work to do that. Reverse engineering the protocol buffers, it's really hard work. And this was speculation, but the reason that we may or may not see the standard we want on the client server, although it's definitely, Google has said they're taking community input, and if you look at the discussions, you know, we're hoping to see XMPP or JSON supported alongside protocol buffers. But people with more negative viewpoints have said that they think that the protocol buffers are so tied in with the, you know, Google search and the big table and the Kraken. So, you know, I'm not even worried about this. This is, you know, things evolve. We're, you know, like the rest of the community, inputting and hoping this evolves. 1 minute, okay. Ooh, and I'm right at the end. So what we're doing is we're working with the Pygo Wave server, which is a re-engineered Wave server by Peter K. Schneider, a really brilliant German PhD student. We've been getting together. We're just starting to work together. It's fantastic. He's really done a good job. It gives us the chance to prototype these ideas, you know, try the ideas out. We'll see how it evolves with the rest of the Wave infrastructure. But we've got what we need right now, and it's really thanks to Pygo Wave, the Pygo Wave project. You know, this is really enabling it. So, your chance to join in. AR Dev Camp on December the 5th is going to be held in Mountain View. Don't expect anyone to go there for one day. I'm not. I'm in New York City. So what we're hoping to do, and we haven't quite synced it all up, we're going to be doing this in the OpenGeo loft. It's fully wired. And we're hoping to have Thomas, who you've got up. Thomas Robel, who is really key in this, is from the Netherlands. Oh, he's from England, right? Yes. I sound English too, but I've actually lived in the US since 1979. And he's going to, with Patrick from Pygo Wave, hopefully do a remote session that will go to Mountain View in New York. I mean, you might even be able to hook up something in person with him. Patrick, I've heard, lives at the far end of Germany, so it's not actually a quick trip to Amsterdam. But we're going to have, at the very least, I'm not sure where the code will be at that point, but at the very least, we're going to have an introduction to the sort of gearheady stuff. Oops. Don't know, was that important? That is just what code, you know, what Patrick, it's a quote from Patrick, just gives you the sort of spirit of Pygo Wave. Okay. Also, there is much room in this for people who are not so gearheady. We actually, Joe Lamantia, who's here, has been really helping me with working on a structure, use cases, because, you know, once you start thinking big capital A architecture, people always say, well, what's your use cases, you know? And so we're really working, it's a very embryonic. I think eventually if this evolves, it's something like the Apache Foundation, but it's, you know, basically non-gearheady input's very helpful too. See you there.
Thank you.